What's going on, Rebel family? Today's video, I want to take a look at the Fox Soul interview between hosted by Tammi Mac and they had on the panel Dr. Umar Johnson, Dwann B, Hope Giselle, and Cynthetic G. And I want to take a look at that. I want to go over some things in that video, in that live stream. I don't want to take too long here. The whole entire interview is like 51 minutes. I don't want to go through the whole thing. There's some points that I want to jump into here. Let me add it to the stream
by
here
black men, whom they did their best to humiliate and emasculate as much as they could. When did that physical and psychological warfare against black men end? Or is there a war on black men to this day? The business of being black today is the war on black men, or not. Please welcome author and activist Hope Giselle. Hi, Hope.
Hey.
Doctor of Clinical Psychology, Dr. Umar Johnson. Hi, Dr. Umar.
Black power.
Umar looks like he doesn't even want to be there, and I can understand. I mean, I would have thought he would have known who or how Cynthia G gets down. He has to know. She has too large of a following for him not to know who she is. But he looks like he doesn't want to be there.
Radio personality and family advocate Dwann Brown is here. Hi, Dwann.
Hello.
An influencer and YouTuber, Cynthia G, is back with us. Hi, Cynthia G.
Hi, how are you guys doing? I'm glad to be here again. I'm ready to go, as
Let's
always.
go then.
Okay, so this the thing that got me was Dr. Umar and the brother Dwann B did not know that Hope Giselle was or is, as Dr. Umar would say, a surgically altered male, or some people say trans woman. And it is so funny. I mean, you could see right there that I mean, if we, I mean, really both of them. I mean, other than Tammy Mac, I mean, Cynthia G and Hope Giselle. If you didn't know Cynthia G had a baby, you would have thought both were in that surgically altered male category. And there's no shade to them, but you could just look at Hope Giselle, and you can tell what's going on with Hope Giselle.
And I'll do exactly what you tell me to do, and that would be go. Now, this question may seem rather odd and unusual for the title of this show alone, in terms of is there a war against black men? But the question is always asked here on the business of being black because, well, it is the business of being black. So, why should black people care if there is a war on black men or not? Cynthia, you kick it off.
So I first want to say there is a war on black men by other black men. And for that reason, I do think that we should care. I think that the perception of who's going to war against black men is going to determine where our energy is directed. And I think it's counterproductive to focus on the group of men who are terrorizing the black community simply because they're being bullied. There's no war against them by other people. They're being bullied by other groups of men. So that's why we should care.
Dwann, why should we care as Black Americans if there's a war out on your kind, being black men?
We should care because black men are the breadwinners of our society. And what we've seen, especially over the last 50 years, is the jobs that black men specifically take have been taken away to other countries or put back into prison, which has then affected the whole family, which caused the so-called war on black men, like Cynthia G just said, happens when black men fight each other. That happens when the economy is destabilized. And you destabilize the economy through destabilizing the foundation of black men's income to ability to earn income. So that's where the war on black men is right now.
Hope, why should black people care?
We should care simply because when black men are not happy, black women can't thrive, and then the black household and black families don't flourish. I think that as long as black men feel attacked, they're always going to turn that back where they feel like they have the most power and honestly say so, which is the black family. Oftentimes that energy that we pour into who is doing what to other people is then neglected within our own black men, and then they cannot thrive as fathers, as nurturers, as caretakers, as heads of the household. But they can only do that if we acknowledge that there's a problem outside of us.
Dr. Umar.
Hey, yo, I was screaming when started hearing Hope speak. It was crazy because it's this thing of, and this is one of the reason why I'm doing this, taking a look at this video. I mean, I wasn't typically. I just there's nothing to say about Cynthia G, but um, but Hope Giselle, it just took it to a whole level, a different level of disrespect. You were born male, and no one leaves something that's easier for something that's harder, because you Hope will tell you that it's harder being uh black trans or black woman and all this kind of stuff. You wouldn't leave something that, if being a black man was harder than being a black trans or black woman, you wouldn't have left that. You wouldn't have altered yourself and then became something, something else, and then identify and then get over here and start pointing the fingers back at what you used to be or what you are. It is insane. I mean, this is absolutely insane, and I get why Dr. Umar was a bit upset and thought it was disrespectful that he wasn't told. But I don't know what's wrong with Dr. Umar, or Dwan, because I think Dwan said it on Twitter that he didn't know either. that this was a transgender male or transgender woman.
You, my sir, are a black man. Why should I care about a war being waged against you?
If you care about the future of Black people, then you naturally have to care about the destiny of Black men. When you look at most of the pathology in the Black community today, from Black on Black crime to single female headed households, to poor academic outcomes, to unemployment, much of that is due to the war against Black men. So if we want to survive and thrive as a Black family and as a Black community, we have to implement solutions for Black men.
So Cynthia G says that the war is waged against Black men towards Black men. So everything that you just listed, Cynthia would suggest that that is the fault of the Black man on his own.
And I would disagree with that. All of the problems that Black men have.
Before Umar gets cooking here, and this is where actually, I wasn't familiar with Dwann B in terms of his I guess on air or on a panel uh, debate or analysis. He's very he has, I mean, in terms of musical history and some other histories and so forth, the brother knows his stuff. I mean, he is absolutely like an encyclopedia when it comes to uh, his knowledge of music, Black history, so forth. I mean, the brother's he's all over it. But I've never seen him like on in a panel discussion with other people. So I didn't know how he was going to get down. But I felt as soon as I saw this, because I saw a clip on Twitter, and the clip that I saw was the infamous one, and we'll get to it at some point here, where Cynthia G stated that Black men are the biggest contributors to white supremacy other than white people, or some silliness like that. And I thought they chose Dr. Umar is absolutely the wrong person to have on this panel, and let me explain to you why. For one, I don't know Dwann B's credentials, but Dr. Umar is he's they're not no one else is on here on the panel, especially the opponents. I'll put it that way. The people that or the detractors on the other side of the argument, they're not in his league. They're not in his category. He's too credentialed to be on. I mean, he kind of legitimizes Hope and Cynthia G by being on the panel with them, and for them to even to be able to address it. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but I mean, he has a PhD and he's have 6 degrees or whatever it is. Man, he's too credentialed. He has too much experience. I mean, it's not comparable. It's not comparable. His experience and level of expertise to theirs is not comparable. So, one, it's kind of an insult to even have him on the panel with them. That's for one. But for two, y- and it's going to show up, and it rears its head in this video here, that all that queen sister, all that kind of stuff. You know, yeah, you could say you love Black people and you love Black women and so forth, and that's all well and good, but it is something to um, it is something to constantly refer to people who, if you're saying that they hate Black men, referring to them as queen, beautiful sisters, and neither uh yeah, in my opinion, neither is attractive. I mean, they both look like you know they look like they could be transgenders or whatever. And that's my opinion, that you know I mean, you can clearly see Hope Giselle is not feminine looking, doesn't look like a woman. And like I said, Cynthia G, if you would have known that she had a baby, you would think the same thing. So I don't let Doc cook a little bit, but I want to get to certain things and point out here.
Were introduced by the white power structure. We do not control the school system. We do not control the criminal justice system. We do not control the economic system. All of the problems that we struggle from were introduced by the white power structure. Black on black crime is a byproduct. It is a second hand influence of the white power structure against black males. Stress, depression, fatherlessness, unemployment, miseducation, lack of economic opportunity. These are the ingredients that contribute to black on black crime. You cannot do an effective and accurate analysis of black on black crime until you first do an effective and accurate analysis of white on black crime.
Cynthia G, you say what?
I say this is the typical Black community's dishonest. I'm going to blame everything on.
And there she goes changing the argument because he didn't blame anything. You have to put in the context of how things got started. In order to solve a problem, in order to accurately solve a problem, you have to understand how the problem came about. So you solve it and you prevent it from ever happening again. So just simply saying the cause of what it is not blaming. It is just saying what is, and she knows this because she used to be on the pro-black tip, and I'm calling this the pro-black ambush because clearly Cynthia G and Hope Giselle will scream that they love black people and they are pro-black and so forth and all this kind of stuff, but we understand that at this point, if you're on Twitter or any social media, at this point you understand that pro-black in the minds of people like Cynthia G or Hope Giselle means something different than it would to maybe like the brother Dwann B or Dr. Umar. It means something completely different. For them, pro-black would mean pro-black family, pro-black men, black women, black children. But for Cynthia G and Hope Giselle, it's going to mean, you know, pro-black means black women and black children in the case of Cynthia G. And in the case of Hope Giselle, it's going to mean specifically maybe, well, Hope considers himself, whatever, a woman. So pro-black women, pro-black means women, children, outside of black males, black girls, I should say, and then black LGBT and all these other things, so all the other letters of the alphabet. So immediately she changes the argument, and this is one of the things that Dr. Umar is going to come at it from a he's going to come at it from he's going to a technical analysis, but they're not. She's not here for that. Cynthia G. She's not here for uh, for she's not there for an honest conversation. She's already starting off being dishonest.
On everyone outside of the Black community and ignore what Black men are choosing to do. The reality of it is the system is not making Black men do anything. Rather,
And he never said that though. He just said what was the cause of it. How did it get started?
Black men have schools where they can send their boys to is up to them. Whether Black men just choose to educate themselves so that they're qualified for positions that will give them the income they need to support their families, that is on Black men. Nobody's forcing Black men to walk away from their children. Nobody's forcing Black men to murder Black women every 5.5 hours. Nobody's forcing Black men to abandon their children, publicly display how they don't like or care about their children. No one's forcing Black men to do anything. And I think it's a great disservice to pretend that someone is forcing Black men to do things rather than to put the accountability where it needs to be, which is Black men. If they have an issue with the system, they should have addressed it a long time ago. You don't get to complain that you don't have any power in a system that you didn't fight to have power in. You fought for assimilation. You did not fight for equality. That is on you. I think we're making excuses at this point.
It's so funny. See, Doc is too smart and he's too technical because all that stuff that she said that black men walking away from their family. The first thing I would have hit her back with is her own situation. She's a walking contradiction, talking about black men not stepping up for their family. She went and got a baby with a dude who, um, has a few baby moms and a few other babies that, this dude was struggling and so forth to take care of. And how much does he see the baby? And I don't know if she moved. I don't know, because she used to be in Seattle. I don't know if she's still there. That brother was in North Carolina. Eh, Me, I say I would have been grimy and came in with well, you're describing your life. Uh, Doc's going to come in technical and speaking facts, which is always it's great in a if he was dealing with intellectual people, but he's not dealing with an intellectual person in Cynthia G.
Dwann,
And I would like to say
go
too
ahead,
that if
Dr.
I may
Umar.
briefly, that Lyndon Baines Johnson had commissioned a Kerner Commission.
Let me skip past this. Doc is going to cook, but I want to get there's something else I want to get to because Dwan B he did what I would have done, and he he threw a nice little jab at us Cynthia G. I'm gonna skip past some of this. You guys probably have seen this in its entirety.
Well, then you don't have an argument for the system because the whole system isn't doing anything to you. It's just a handful of people, right? But I wish we could get out the 19.
Okay, so they're gonna talk about the 1960s. You guys are going back to the 1960s. What about now? And Doc comes in and is like, "Hey, you have to have a historical
Solution that we see
analysis."
in these arguments are
And
Made. The bottom line is
Hope was making me. Uh, I wanted to jump through the goddamn. I wanted to jump through the camera because the nerve of someone who cut off their genitalia to become something else and then turn around and point fingers at what you are, sir, is just the epitome of brain damage and insanity.
the issues that Black men are inflicting on the community are issues that we should be focusing on.
I want to get Hope in on this real quick. Hope.
Look at that jawline. I can't believe these brothers did not know that this was a dude. Ugh,
I mean, the fact of the lack of elevation and evolution that we see in these arguments
look at
are my biggest issue. Once again, we're back in the 1960s when we should be having, like Sin just said, a current conversation. Currently, Black men are not being held at the fire and said that if
you left. What do you mean not being held at the fire? You ran away from being a black man. What are you talking about? And this person didn't transition when they were younger. This person you know what? Let me just
you
keep
do
going.
not prefer, if you don't provide this, or if you don't show up in this way, we're going to do X, Y, and Z to your family. Y'all just are not showing up.
Like, what do you mean, y'all? You
And then when you're
let me
asked to
keep
be held
going.
accountable to these things, you say things like, well, back in this time, and when we tried to do this back in a couple of years ago, half of y'all weren't even around when those things
Listen
were,
to this, half
put
of
into
y'all.
action. And then when you found out about them, instead of bringing them back to the forefront to see if they would work for you in this day and age, you just talk about what didn't work in the back, on the back end of
These
things.
people are
I think that a lot of
insane.
the times you all find it a lot easier to gaslight us into believing that we're the problem so that you can have more time to figure out what the solution is, but that's not the solution anymore. We figured out that that doesn't work, and you trying to buy time in the system is not going to help anybody, and especially not the Black communities that you say that you love.
We're not trying to get with you, sir. I'm sorry. We're not. We're not trying to build with you. No. You may have a simp with his own uh he has his own issues. Whoever the simp is that you're with, he has his own mental issues. But we're not trying to build with you. There's no benefit of getting with you.
Let's bring it
Before
to
we go to
today.
break, hold that thought, Dwann. Before we
Okay.
go to break, I do want to take up for my Black brothers here. The CDC reports that Black men.
Let me skip past this. Okay, Doc is gonna be Doc cooks in this, but they're just it's just wasted for him to cook with these two.
Absolutely yes.
Cynthia G, where are you on this?
Oh, she asked the question: Is there
Are Black men? Is there a war being waged against Black men? First of all, I want to see where you all stand just by a yes or no. Dr. Umar, is there? Yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
Hope, is there?
No.
Dwann?
Absolutely yes.
Cynthia G, where are you on this?
the only war is the war that Black men are waging against the Black community.
So is that a yes or no?
Yes, there is.
Dwann.
I mean, look at they're both of them are hard chin. Like I said, and then again, I'm not sure. I've never if Cynthia G even had that baby. I'm sorry. They look about as hard as each other. But anyway, this Hope says there's no war. The war made you jump ship. You You altered yourself to become something that you feel that you know is less threatening in a system of white supremacy. You know being a woman is less threatening than being a man. So you jump ship.
And if there is a war waging against black men, do black men have allies?
No. The only allies we have is our other. Well, I would say we don't have any outside allies as far as any other races. No, the only allies we have are black women who are on code with black men.
Because I was about to be real mad. I was about to be real mad.
Yeah.
I was about to go ham.
No. Because it's a lot of black women who are on code. I know I'm married to one. You know, I've been with the same woman for 20 years, so I can preach. I can walk what I preach when it comes down to this. We do have allies, and the allies. The ally is the black man, woman, and child.
See, there he goes. His idea of pro-black, black man, woman, and child. That's typically how men get down, other than Hope. You know how they look at pro-black, but Dwann B, it says
With this
exactly what
whole
I'm saying.
fight between black men and black women, it's like the women forgot about the kids.
Okay, let me skip past
I don't even know how we got to the kids.
No, because we're all one. Black man, woman, and child.
Are you talking about the kids that black men abandon and publicly talk about how they don't want those children?
I can't speak for your life, but all I know is my father's always been there for me. My wife's father's always been there for her.
look at Cynthia G. She's triggered. The brother made it personal and it triggered her. The brother said, I don't know about your father, but my father's always been in my life. And she's now she's being offended because, like, man, what are you talking about? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
There for my wife. My grandparents were there. I have married lineage. I can go back 400 years of marriages, so I don't know what that's about.
Be that as it may, is very documented.
I was talking. When it comes down to it, there are some men that leave, and we're going to talk about the men that leave. Let's talk about a lot of men that leave because of how they were pushed out by people who were going around trying to get government benefits. Let's talk about that. If he's not there, let's talk about all these single family households that are there because somebody wanted a baby so they can get a check one day and didn't give a damn about who she had that baby with. 80% of the women having sex with the same 20% of men. If you keep in that same loophole, you got to look in the mirror.
Well, period. I don't know.
See, and I would have, man, if I was Dwann B, I would have, Cynthia G, you proved that statistic. You got with a dude who already had 4 or 5 kids before you had a baby with him. So I would, man, and I know he probably didn't want to take it personal because these brothers are smart and then they're not going to do the ad hominems. But with certain people, you already know what it's going to be. You already know it's going to be, lies or misrepresentation of the facts. If there are any facts, it's going to be spinning it. You know what I mean? It's going to be, you saw how she was talking over him because she got triggered. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take it there. I would have just went, okay, ma'am, you prove, and I was, 80% of the women have sex with 20% of the men or whatever. I was like, Cynthia G, your life proves that, and triggered her again.
Dwann, I mean, your points are well taken. I'm just confused on how we go from a war against black men to women having babies by different men. It's not adding up here.
Well, see, Tammi Mac, you kind of, I know she has to try to ride the fence, but it's almost kind of like she's on the other side because she's a black woman, so she don't want to hear black women being put in a negative light. But it's to push back on the narrative that Cynthia G was talking about, black men leaving all these babies and having all this sex and all the. Wait a minute, they're not having sex with themselves. They're not creating babies themselves. So you got to look at the women and then who are they having babies with? When 50% of black men don't have no kids, then who's fathering all these kids that Cynthia G talks about black men are leaving? So she takes the I guess it is 51% of black men that don't have children. So she takes the minority, which is 49% of black men who do have children, but then the ones who have I forgot the number. It's less than that about the number of men who have multiple children by multiple women and unmarried that have never been married, multiple children by multiple women. I forgot the number exactly, but that's the minority, and that's who Cynthia G is talking about and applying it to all black men or black men as a whole. And that's where, like I said again, she's not there to be factual. Now Tammy Mac is talking about how do we get here? Well, he's pushing back. If you let her spew this thing about black men having all these kids, because what does that got to do with the war? You should be saying the same thing to Cynthia G, and then Dwann wouldn't have pushed back on that narrative. So he's just pushing back on her false narrative.
Dr. Umar, help me make the math.
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, we have to make sure that we conduct a systems analysis and an institutional assessment. Communities are made up of institutions or the lack thereof. Communities are governed by systems or the lack thereof. Let us be very clear about something. This fratricide, this black on black crime that so many of our brothers are engaging in, let us remember Irish did the same thing. Italians did the same thing. European Jews did the same thing. And in the 1930s and 1940s, the United States government decided to upgrade them to white status, and in so doing, gave the Italians control of the fire departments in the black community, gave the Irish control of the police departments in the black community, and gave the European Jewish immigrants control of the civil service municipal jobs that they still control in many city centers today. The point that I'm making, Tammy, is that America gave Southern European immigrants an economic stimulus package. Before they gave that economic stimulus package to Jews, Irish, and Italians, they were doing the exact same thing black men are doing today, selling drugs, breaking the law, running in gangs, killing one another. But the government intervened and aided them. The reason black male pathology is still going on 30, 40, 50 years later is there has been no resolution, there have been no solutions, and there have been no governmental intervention. With that being said, I'm not waiting on the government to solve the problems of black men. We as black men have to unite, come together, organize, and solve our own problems. Just because we can admit that the government introduced pathology into the black community, we can still take full responsibility for ending it ourselves.
Hope, I see you nodding.
Yes, because I feel like when you can name all of these things so eloquently and so beautifully, and yet y'all still fail at being able to do these things
Y'all,
after
damn
years
it, I'm sorry. Let me let me stop. Oh, this guy gets me triggered.
and years and years and years and years of trying.
Y'all.
Where do we find a new solution? Because if you can't talk to each other, if the old men are scared of these new boys because they're a lot wilder than y'all were, because they're a lot more buck than y'all were, what ends up happening is I see that a lot of y'all see these young boys, and instead of addressing them, y'all are afraid of them. And so you walk away and say, well, that's their generation's problem. And it can't just be that generation's problem. Like Sin has been continuously saying, if I have to just answer the question with a yes or no, my answer is no, because the war that we're fighting for black men is the one that black men are fighting within themselves. Is it about adjacency to whiteness? Is it about being able to assimilate to that white hand? Or is it really about the freedom of black men in the black family and the black community?
I like that question a lot, Hope. I want to hang on to that question. Dwann, if there is a war against black men, what exactly is the war?
The war is to disenfranchise black men economically, because when you destabilize us economically, everything else is going to fall. We can take this back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which Maslow didn't come up with, but that's who gets the credit for it. When you
Let me keep going here. Let me jump forward here. This guy again. This triggers me.
I agree with that. I want to go ahead, Hope.
I was going to say, but it's at the expense of the black families that y'all claim to care so much about. I think that what we fail to realize is that when the black men who do have that platform that are not doing those things get on, the last thing that they're thinking about is the black adjacency to their family. They want to assimilate to whatever whiteness, whatever white male privilege they get. And that's a large part of the problem. We see this happen when we look at social media, and we're seeing black men publicly proclaim the idea of loving on everything but a black woman, wanting to have children because their eyes and their hair are going to be looser and more exotic looking.
See, that's a total lie, and they can't just cut her off when they're lying. And I said her, whatever. This confuses me sometimes because it's whatever. Anyway, That's a total lie. Black men are never on this. Well, I want my child to have loose flowing hair and um lighter complexion. That's not black man. That's a black woman thing. It always has been. It's not black men with the good hair. We don't talk like that. That's not black men at all.
Do not see that as much in an influx of black women as you do in black men. So when y'all do get on, then it should be the responsibility of y'all, if y'all really care about this upholding of the black family, to then come back to the black communities that you come from and create those black families and show people
Dr. Umar, you welcomed us
You
to the
can't
show
even,
by
dude. You can't even create a family, man. What you got? What kind of family you gonna create? You can't father a child. You can't mother one. Please.
saying black power, black power. Okay. Is there some truth to the assimilation that black men want or perceive to want when it comes to this war being waged against
Well,
you?
well, there's definitely some truth to it, but I think that truth is also evident in Black women. Black men, many of them may choose to want a white woman, but many Black women choose to look like white women. So we have to look at ourselves and we have to recognize that the pathology is not more of one gender than the other. That's the issue I have with conversations that seek to see who is more at fault, the Black man or the Black woman. It's not about who's more at fault. We rise together or we will perish together. The Black man cannot survive without his woman, and the Black woman cannot survive without her man. And the issue that I take with my two sisters' narrative is I hear a lot of criticism. I hear a lot of condemnation, but I don't hear any empowerment. I don't hear any solutions coming from either one of them. It appears as if that there is a hatred towards Black men by those sisters. Even when they said, why are we going back to 1960? Let's stay in 2022. That is so immature and irresponsible of a statement. As a psychologist, when a client comes into my office, the first thing I perform is a history on their depression, a history on their suicide, a history on their anxiety. When you go see the medical doctor, he performs a history. When you go buy a home, they perform a history. When you go purchase an automobile, they perform a history on that automobile. But when we talk about the problems that affect Black males, we're supposed to look at it in a vacuum. We're not supposed to put it in a historical context. And with that being said, the language and the narrative that's coming out of the mouth of these two beautiful Black women is one that I think the white power structure would endorse because it totally absolves them of any responsibility for the hell Black men catch in this country.
Cynthia,
And see, Doc is cook. Doc cooks right there. He was cooking, and he's telling the truth. And even Hope had to shake his head or her, whatever. Hope shakes his head, and in agreement because he knows that Doc is saying is correct. That you have to take things in a historical context. You can't just take it in a vacuum. That's why Hope was shaking his head. And but then we'll turn right back around and then start spewing the same thing because Cynthia G does. That's what I'm talking about. Doc Doc is a heavyweight. Those those two are featherweights, if that. They're not in the same weight class at all. But the thing here, so Doc displayed in that particular clip, Doc displayed exactly what I said. The two issues that the things that Doc the two issues that I have with Doc on this he displayed in that one instance or one segment there. Obviously, intellectually, he's a heavyweight over these two. They're just not ready. They're just not ready to have an intellectual conversation with Doc. He's just you know. Anyway, then the second thing was how many times did he call them beautiful black women, beautiful black queens, and he's talking to a dude. One is a dude, or at least one is a dude. You know what I mean? Like, come on, Doc. And the bad thing about it is Doc is not going to learn from this lesson. He's going to get somewhere on another panel and refer, no matter how they talk about black men, these ain't your sisters. I mean, not withstanding that one is a dude, these are not your sisters. Like, I mean, come on, Doc. This is what I'm saying, Doc. He's the right and the wrong person for this for to be on a panel like this because these people are disingenuous and um, Doc is not going to learn from this. He's going to go right back to calling. No matter what Cynthia G says, it's my beautiful. I love you. No, yeah, I can. You know, people like that. I don't. Yeah, yeah. I don't. I don't necessarily say I love. I love them like that. They're part of the black community or whatever, but they're undermining us. I mean, come on. I mean, you you know too much about history to where some of your some of Doc's greatest or people that he looked up to most, they had to deal with the traitors amongst them, and i- it is what it is. Like you have to exercise some things out of the community. You have to exercise, you know, you have to get rid of it. You got a cancer. You got to cut it out. It is what, man. Come on, it is what it is, male or female. And I'm just saying this because it's just them. I mean, there's males in the community that are detrimental to the community. We supposed to just I love you, I love you. No, come on.
G, you did say, why are we going all the way back to 1960? There is some truth to history when it comes to evaluating anything or anyone. So, what do you say to that? I hold that thought because I only got about 30 seconds here. So, I don't want you to get into it because I know you're going to get into it good, sis, and then have to come right back out of it. You understand? So, just make sure you understand the question at hand, which is about a person's history, in this particular case, black men's history in America, and why it doesn't matter when it comes to the war being waged against them. We'll talk about that and more when we return on The Business of Being Black with Tammi Mac on Fox Soul. Oh, we'll be back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mac. I am Tammi Mac, and the business of being black today is black men. Is there a war being waged against them? We left off with Dr. Umar talking about how history matters when it comes to the contextual matters of black men having wars waged against them, a war waged against them. So, Cynthia G, what do you say to historical context?
I say we should go to the historical
No, you
context
don't.
because what I have not heard from Dr. Umar Johnson, or I think his name is Dwayne,
Dwann.
Dwann is what I have not heard as they're mentioning all of the things that was done to them. I haven't heard what you did in response to it. So I would like to know, what did you do in response in history other than go to the Supreme Court and petition to have access to the men's women that you're complaining and accusing of disenfranchising you? See, because
Okay, so she keeps using that and pasting that on all black men, and when it was, I guess, one black man, and I think she's talking about the and why does it slip my mind now while I'm here? Um where it came out of the Supreme Court, uh a black man, what did the Supreme Court decision that said that a black man has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. What is that case? Oh my gosh. Okay, but anyway, so Tammy Mack allowed her to reframe and question them. She didn't answer her question. She she allowed her to pivot, and then they're gonna respond to her question. It was like I would have pivoted back.
in the 1960s, what Black men were really doing, and it's been documented, many civil rights leaders have admitted to it, what Black men were doing is chasing the white man's woman, trying to so-called stick it to him by way of going to their women. What you should have been doing is trying to get liberation for yourself. What you should have been trying to do is get that foot off your neck. But see, the foot is not on your neck, and
She should have been asked. Tammy Mack should have asked her to clarify which civil rights leader said what she just attested to. She's just allowed to spew just whatever comes into her head, and it's not challenged, and then the brothers have to try to respond to it. That's that's just a total loser way to a losing argument. You're going to lose that argument every single time when you're chasing anything that comes into someone's head, whatever they just decide that pops into their head. Okay, I'm going to ask this question about this. Has nothing to do with anything. So some civil rights leaders said that they were chasing the white woman. Like, I mean, Tammi Mac is the host. She should have, if anybody's going to ask for clarification, it should have been her. But Dwann B and Dr. Umar should definitely not respond to what she's asking because it's just silly.
The only time you recognize it being on your
I mean, Dwann just simply came back with chasing the white woman. I don't know what you're talking about. I've been with a black woman for 20 years. I don't get what you're even saying because he already said that. So and he should have answered the question, but I think Doc is going to answer. But see, Doc is so intellectual that he's only going to give an intellectual response.
is when you want to get away with doing something that you think white men are getting away with doing. Because let's just be
Total
real.
just
Whenever
lies.
we hear about this war against black men, it's usually being brought up when there's a black man like R. Kelly, Bill Cosby. We see Trey Songz going through it, Ari Spears. When they
Oh my God, this just any lie that she can throw out there, just diarrhea of the mouth.
engage in some degeneracy, and then they're getting a consequence for it. And black men think that because they perceive white men to be getting away with crimes, they want to be able to get away with crimes as well. The reality is
That argument has been debunked so many times. Black men are just simply saying, look, if we're going to be charged and punished for it, then white men should be charged and punished for it. But for some reason, these airheads turn the argument around. Oh, you just want to get away with it. We all saw damn near most black men who didn't have a bone to pick with Bill Cosby and who looked at things from an intellectual standpoint and not an emotional one. We weren't sitting up here talking about, hey, Bill Cosby didn't do X, Y, or Z. We were simply saying Bill Cosby needs to get a fair shake, and he's not getting a fair shake. And it was proven. Bill Cosby did not get a fair, and that's all black men were saying. It was like, well, dang, if they can railroad Bill Cosby, they totally violated his Fifth Amendment rights. And we might not have known the legals, but we were like, oh, yo, that ain't right. If the prosecutor made a deal with him to not prosecute him if he testified, then that's supposed to stand, no matter what prosecutor comes. That's simple. That's just basic common sense. And that's all people say. Nobody was saying, hey, when it was about free Bill Cosby, it wasn't saying, okay, Bill Cosby didn't do what he was opposed to do or alleged to have done. It was, hey, this man's rights were violated. But then but then when you do dig down and talking about Andrea Constant, then when you start looking at the deposition itself, it was like, wait a minute, Bill Cosby didn't even say what she's alleging. Bill Cosby, um, Bill Cosby was he was alleged to have done X, Y, and Z with Andrea Constant, and it's like, she's lying, her testimony changed, and then they allowed all these uh witnesses to come on the stand that were going to be prejudicial to the jury. It's like, yo, this guy's getting railroaded. That's what we were talking about. You know, Obviously, anybody is anybody, and she listened to R. Kelly. I mean, I don't want to. She probably still listens to R. Kelly. I don't want to hear that crap. Like I said, I've been 30 years not listening to R. Kelly. When again when he married Aaliyah back in '94, that was enough for me. I was like, okay, something wrong with that dude because Aaliyah looked like a little kid back then. There was nothing that I was 21 when they got married, and he was 27 or 28 or whatever, because it's like 7 years older than me. And I'm like, look, dude, there's something wrong with you if you look at a 15-year-old, and that, and in particular her, because she wasn't built like a woman at 15. But anyway, so you know, with R. Kelly, it was a thing of every single person in that surviving R. Kelly documentary was a hypocrite. Charlemagne, the Big Fat Whales, Tarana Burke, all of them, every single person in that, Mark Lamont Hill, all of them, Dream Hampton, all of them were hypocrites because they all supported R. Kelly after he married Aaliyah. Charlemagne was the worst because he was talking about R. Kelly, and hate to digress too far, but he talked about how he had the greatest sex tape ever and all this kind of silly stuff. I'm like, yo, how you got Charlemagne the dirtbag up here on this? That documentary was prejudicial. And then all of the cases coming out because they can somehow manufacture crimes on black men 30 years later, and you get him for RICO and all this kind of crazy stuff. And you know what I mean? Like all these, there's no evidence other than just, say so. And maybe they made deals with some of his co-defendants, because I saw that, I think this recent case in Chicago, he got convicted, I think sentenced to 30 years or something like that. And then both his co-defendants got off all charges. I was like, oh, they turned on him. So, you know, just give brothers a fair trial. But here's the thing, fairly try the white men as well. Don't sit up here and all these black women are disappearing. I mean, see, and this is why they're so disingenuous. All these black women are disappearing, and it's at the hand of white men. White men were the last one to see them, and then there's nothing happening to them. And we're not saying no, they should get away with it, or if it was a black man in that situation, he should get away with it. No, punish both equally. Just punish both of them the same.
Dr. Umar can sit up here and list all the different ways that the system is disenfranchising black men and black men in a victim boat. But the reality is what he cannot tell you is what black men did in response to it, because they did nothing. They laid down and they nested under the skirt of their non-black preferences, and only to complain that whenever they commit a crime, they're not getting off like they
So
think.
let's find out. Dr. Umar, what have black men done?
Well, number one, again, I think that it is such a shame coming from a psychological perspective that we seek to heal our wounds as a people by relying on unprofessional testimony by individuals who have a vendetta against the opposite gender in their community. When you hear Sister Cynthia speak, you can hear a hurt and a pain and a hatred towards black men. We cannot find an effective solution to black male-female relationship issues or the oppression of black men or black women when the people at the table having the conversation have negative emotional and pathological interests in the conversation that are not.
Umar, the question wasn't about my emotional state. The question was, what did black men do in response to their disenfranchisement? Yeah, because you're trying to pathologize my emotional state, not knowing that I'm a psychologist too. But what you're not doing is telling us what black men did.
I believe he'll get there, Dr. Umar.
May I finish?
Dr.
He hit such a nerve with her, because Doc intellectually said what I've been saying. And like I said, I would have took it in the dirt. Look, chick, yeah, you're like baby number 5. And I said something like that. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Doc did it in an intellectual way. He basically said the same thing. Like, all of what you're going through, all of the stuff that you're saying is all, projection. And I can't break it like Doc did. Doc does a great job. And he intellectualized. That's why she was so triggered, because she knew exactly he was talking about, like, absolutely 100% her condition, the condition that she's in. She's bitter. She had a baby with a dude that got like 4 baby moms, 3 baby moms, whatever it is, 4 or 5 kids, 3, 4 baby moms. She's the latest one. Maybe he has another one. I don't even know where that dude is now. He ain't no telling. He probably ain't stopped having kids, knowing that guy. That's your life, ma'am. And you're bitter about it. So now you just blame black men because of your situation. And then we don't even talk about hope. Dude, you are a black man. What the freak are you talking about? You jump ship. I mean, what? How does that sound? Okay. You literally jump ship. So it's like uh you know we're on a ship. We're on a ship, and it's 5 of us on a ship, and you know one of us says, okay, you know what, I just can't take it on here no more. I gotta go. whatever. I know it's sinking, and y'all trying to save the ship. I'm gonna let y'all go down with the ship. I'm gonna go over here, and I'm gonna jump, on this nice luxury cruise liner because they got all the benefits and so forth. That's where I'm going. And then get on the cruise ship and look back and tell, well, y'all ain't doing it right. Y'all don't know what y'all doing over there. Y'all can't. That's exactly what Hope Giselle is doing. Black men are this and black men are that. Dude, you jump ship. What was so wrong with your life that you had to change who you were born as because you couldn't take it as a black man? It's no way that dude would have kept talking, because that would have absolutely 100% came out of my mouth. And every time I look up, I can't see how these guys did not know that that was a man. That's not. Come
Omar?
on.
And I'll end it quickly, Sister Tammy. According to Mrs. Cynthia G., Dr. King was assassinated because he was doing nothing. Malcolm X was assassinated because he was doing nothing. Medgar Evers was assassinated because he was doing nothing. Fred Hampton was assassinated because he was doing nothing. That narrative that black men have done nothing to fight back against systemic oppression, not only against ourselves, but against our women, our children, our elders, and our community, is absolutely ridiculous. The cemetery is filled with black men, names we know and names we don't know, who gave their life for the freedom, liberation, and emancipation of African people. How can you disrespect the history of so many black men, past and present, who continue to fight? I'm sitting in a school right now that we built with all black money, 4 buildings that we're going to educate black men in. It's not easy to solve our problems because there's always black people in your very same community who's fighting against what you're trying to do to help it. But in addition to that, the white power structure is always waving its wand of oppression to try to sabotage anything we do. I think that the analysis of our women is too overly simplistic, and in being such, it is dishonest.
She was triggered again. Cynthia G is triggered again because she's laughing. Doc is brilliant on this one. But like I said, again, he's the right person, but the wrong person at the same time, because they're not in his league. What he's saying is right.
But
Hope, hold
they've
that
Look at
been
thought,
through
Trigger.
so
sister.
Trigger.
much. You've only listed names and not accomplishments, though.
Trigger.
I can
The
list some
point,
accomplishments. Okay, when it comes down to it, what if black
Let me
opinion
skip
proper
past the one real quick, because
things
he said some good stuff, but I want to.
that's gone up in the last 60 years since the coronavirus? We still doing it.
Umar, I want to get Hope in here because Dr. Umar listed a plethora of black men that we know, and I'm assuming he listed the ones that we know so that we can identify and all agree that these black men have done something in terms of the fight for equality in America. How do you feel about those men that he listed, Hope? Have they done anything for the black community or no?
Most definitely, I would be ignorant to say that they haven't, right? But I think that what we're failing to realize is that when we have this conversation about what black men have done, the consequences are usually because of white supremacy and the gaze of white
Oh,
folks
goodness.
on us are that the black men are then taking away and the black women have to then sustain those things. To say that black women are unappreciative of that, it would be
Well, you ain't one, sir.
I think that is the dishonesty, right? The way that black women show up for the black community and the black families,
You ain't one.
regardless of how we feel about the black men that we might be interacting with or the black men that are doing bad things, while still staying here to cultivate the black men who are, I mean, to overlook that to me is just dishonest. The idea that a lot of you all were raised by grandma and them and auntie them and all of these amazing black women that are in community and share space with you and share space with your children, that's being looked over. But also, this isn't, Dr. Umar, you're right. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that you said, but you're absolutely right. It's not about the idea of who's doing it better or the pissing match of the oppression Olympics amongst black people, but it's really about working together. The problem is what I find in working together is that the black man wants to lead, whether he's acquired the gumption and the knowledge to be able to do so appropriately and effectively or not. The thing about it is when you're working together, we are a team. You get to lead this portion because you're
No, sir. No.
better at it. I get to lead that portion because I'm better at it. And then we come to a common ground for
No, sir.
both of us to succeed. But a lot of the times when we're talking about these succession plans and we're making all of these advocacy movements in order to progress the black family, the black man says, listen to me or fail.
And that's totally false, because black women and black LGBT are put ahead of put above black men by mostly white liberals. Let's just call it what it is. They will prop black women and black LGBT people above black men. I should say black heterosexual men.
Right? As if Black women have nothing to contribute to that. And I think that that's where the problem is. That's where the discourse needs to happen, is how do we work together so that Black men understand that we are meant to work side by side, and not with me following you with my head down and saying, yes, that's our master. Because
Nobody's ever said that. We can't work with people like you. It's just brothers like Umar are going to have to come to the realization that there's no working with a Hope Giselle or Cynthia G. There's nothing that you could do with that.
that is me being subservient to you in a way that I might not want to do, especially considering if you do not have the credentials, the know-how, the wherewithal, or the lived experiences to lead me in a way that I might be better suited to do in this point of our journey. And
Dr.
Black
Umar.
Well, first of all, I do not endorse any kind of a second-class citizenship role for Black women. I believe Black women have as much to offer as do Black men. So I'm not sure who the Queen is referring to, because I am.
See, he's saying the Queen. Stop that, Umar. Man, he's not going to learn from this. I already know it. He's still going to go out and do it. Every, I don't know, anyone that identifies as a woman, he's going to call queen and sister and all that kind of stuff. Just stop. Just start calling them by their name. It's safer. You wouldn't be calling this man queen and beautiful black sister and beautiful black this.
Not a misogynist, and I do not support that type of narrative that said the Black woman's position is only to have children and to prepare food. But at the same time, I think Black women have to look at themselves, because although white supremacy has been the greatest enemy of the progress of Black men, you would also have to argue that Black women have probably been the greatest accomplice to supporting the white power structure in their destruction of Black males, i.e. the conversation we're having right now, where two intelligent Black women have yet to indict white supremacy for the role that they play in the destabilization of the lives of Black men.
And they're not going to, because they're disingenuous. This is why Doc he was wasted on his talent and intellect was wasted in this interview dealing with Cynthia G and Hope Giselle. It was just wasted because they're not going to be honest. They're not there for an honest conversation. It's clear.
So when we come back, we'll
Look at 'em.
find out if the two
And they're never
beautiful
going to.
sisters who are on the panel will indict white
No,
supremacy
they're not
when we
going to. They're
return
gonna
on the Business of Being Black with
G.
Tammi
Look at
Mac
it.
on Fox
Cynthia
Soul.
G is already
Welcome
looking
back
for
to
next
Business of
visit.
Being Black with Tammi Mac. I am Tammi Mac, and the business of being Black today is Black men. Has there been a war waged against our brothers? Well, please welcome author and activist Hope Giselle, Doctor of
Sheesh.
Clinical Psychology, Dr.
That
Umar
chin,
Johnson,
man.
radio personality and family advocate Dwann Brown, influencer and YouTuber Cynthia G. Well, thank you all for this conversation. Do Black men in America face more obstacles than Black men in other countries? We're going to talk about that. But first, I want to know, is white supremacy responsible for any of the Black man's plight at all? Hope?
Most definitely. Like, let's not play coy here. We understand the role that white supremacy has played, but I think that over time, as we learn the tricks of white supremacy, right, we learn to do better to defeat it. And I find that, especially as Black men, a lot of the time when we're talking about this war on Black men, we fail to realize that Black women are underneath the same scrutinies. Maybe not in the same way, and maybe not for the same reasons, but y'all are not going through this alone. And so when you talk about the ways in which Black women have learned to take, what we're given and turn it into glitter and throw it up and make Black girl magic, we wonder why those things are not happening for Black men in the same
You ain't a black girl. Stop it.
way. And it's largely because I think that complacency happens. A lot of Black men, not all, are complacent with the idea of being saved by everyone other than themselves.
Yeah, you were saved by a damn surgery.
They're okay with the idea of being saved by Black women, white women, women of all other races. They're okay with the idea of being saved by white men who give them the opportunity to come and be a part of this thing that's better than what they are. But what they're not doing is being complacent in the idea of finding their own solutions to digging their way out of the hole. And having one or two people that are speaking on it with the idea of inclusion or exclusion of certain people within the Black community is also a problem. We cannot build as a Black community if we want to throw out this group of people or throw out that group of people or tell these people that their opinions are invalid invalid, even though they're Black, because they're mixed race or because they're queer or because of all these other, incidences. And I think that those are the things that we have to focus on. The goalposts can't constantly be moved in this conversation whenever Black women start to make a point for the sake of Black men feeling like they need to be able to dismantle that in order to talk about how they've been hurt.
Totally
We get that.
pivoted. I forgot this dude
White
pivoted
supremacy.
from
Does it
white
exist
supremacy.
in your world? And
Absolutely.
has it affected Black men?
Damn it. Okay, I was going to say, Tammi Mac, you asked a different question. You changed the question.
Absolutely, it exists, and
it
Black
exists.
men have worked in tandem with white.
See, Tammi, yeah, that's what it was. This is the part that I did. Tammi Mac changed the question and asked her, "Does it exist?" That's why I said it was like, dang, Tammi Mac, man.
Supremacy since they've come in contact with it. And this is why I say in the Black community, we have very disingenuous, very dishonest discussions, especially when it's regarding Black men, because we do have a Black male worshiping culture. So what we do within that culture, and Umar Johnson is showing it today, is absolve Black men from any accountability for what they've done. Number one, we wouldn't be in a system of white supremacy had it not been for Black men. So if you want to go all the way back to history,
okay, we wouldn't be in a system of white supremacy if it wasn't for Black men. Okay, how? Okay, okay. So if you say, okay, white men created it, so they created the system. Now, are you saying, like, what is she saying? That, oh God, I can't. You know what?
Then let's go back to history when Black men were selling their own people into white supremacy. Let's go back into history when 16.
Some Africans were mad at Doc for not jumping in. I'm like, Doc couldn't just jump in. It wasn't a one-on-one debate, because she said this. I saw in the comments as I was going down that some Africans were upset that Doc didn't correct her on this. I mean, like, there's a lot that Doc could have corrected her on, but this dude is a pathological liar here. This dude is lying about everything.
Years off the plantation, Black men weren't worried about a war being waged on them. They were worried about getting access to white women. That's what you were worried.
I get a Dred Scott decision. That's what it was. I believe that's the case
about. And it's interesting. There's a reason why I feel like Umar focused mostly on me and Hope's attitudes, and it's because he can't accurately answer the question. He mentioned names, not accomplishments. And the reason being is because
I think he mentioned those names specifically because the accomplishments of those people don't have to be explained.
Right, but those accomplishments are also accomplishments that I've heard Umar Johnson speak negatively about, specifically the civil rights movement and how damaging it was to Black people. But now he wants to sit here and say
she conflated different arguments. Oh my God. Yes, he talked about some things that the civil rights that might have damaged us in terms of the civil rights movement, but it wasn't the civil rights movement. It was more so integration. When we left Black businesses, that hurt us. We integrated into the schools, even though like my parents had inferior books, but they had loving teachers. My parents told me how they had to, the first 2 weeks of school, they had to erase all the marks out of the books because the books that they got were books that were given to them from the whites the year before. So the white kids had the books the year before, then they got passed down to the Black kids. So the first 2 weeks of school, they had to go through every single page of the books and erase everything that the white kids was writing in there. So, but so we had it. So when the civil rights movement was going on, they wasn't looking to go to white schools. They were just saying, "Hey, give us the money that we are deserving of and that we're owed, so that we can have new books. We can get the same materials at the same time that the white kids are getting." That's what it was. And of course, white supremacy. They always have a trick up their sleeve, and they remixed it. But she knows this, and because when she was on her pro-Black tip before she had a kid out of wedlock with a deadbeat, um, this is the kind of stuff that she was talking about. Now she totally flipped.
Very people who accomplished that were accomplishing something beneficial when in his own opinion, that wasn't beneficial and did more harm to the community than good. So I think that because we're having such a dishonest discussion where Black men don't want to take accountability for what they've done, they want to be the victims of society, but then they want submission from the women. The bottom line.
And she totally lied on Doc. Doc has never. He might have, for instance, um, Frederick Douglass. You know, he's not a direct descendant. He's a relative, a descendant relative of Frederick Douglass. He criticized Frederick Douglass for marrying a white woman, but he's never said anything negative about Frederick Douglass. Same thing with, you know, in certain cases, Dr. Martin Luther King. It just, but he said that was one of his favorites. This is where she's so disingenuous and she lied on him. He actually, I've heard him say that even though he had problems with some of the civil rights stuff, or the integration. And let me be specific, because now she got me saying the wrong crap. He had a problem with integration, not civil rights, the civil rights movement itself, the Black Power movement, but the integration portion of it. He had certain issues with it, but he said Dr. Martin Luther King was one of his favorite ancestors.
Is I'm not willing to deflect from the fact that, number one, Black men are the greatest non-white contributors to white supremacy. Let's just be real. White supremacy couldn't even exist without Black men's compliance. They're always uplifting whiteness, biracial children, and trying to assimilate. And that's why I went back to the notion of,
see, all that biracial children, that's Black women. When and this was 2018, what was it, 2015? I can't remember which. 2018, and I get all these figures because I'll be here for 3 hours. 2018, it showed that out of wedlock births, Black women had 1.2 million more babies than Black men. So that means that they're having babies by someone else, and those babies are biracial, but Black men will get blamed for it. All these Black women going into the hospital having out of wedlock births, because they're Black, is going to get put on Black men. These Black women having all these babies, everyone knows that for the most part, most Black men have children or date or marry Black women, and so that gets put on us.
the only time Black men truly feel like there's a war against them is when they feel like they're being punished for something white men do. At the end of the day, y'all dropped the ball. You're blaming white supremacy on your failures. We already know there's oppression, but Black women are double oppressed. We have more barriers to face. You have male privilege and a patriarchy.
Oh, this male patriarchy and male privilege. There's no privilege to being a Black man. It's actually a detriment. You have more privilege because you're less of a threat as a Black woman. You're not a double anything.
Patriarchal system, and you can't even get it right.
Well, Dr. Umar, I think we all know your stance on interracial marriages.
Absolutely, but let me also
so please acknowledge what the rest of what Cynthia G has said.
Absolutely. I'm not sure where Sister Cynthia took history class, but if you know anything about the transatlantic slave trade was a European enterprise.
I'm talking about the sub-Saharan. I'm talking about the sub-Saharan slave trade. You should go look into it.
Excuse me.
You address me, Umar. Go look into the sub-Saharan slave trade where Black men are trading their women and children for alcohol and tobacco.
May I finish?
Go ahead, Dr. Umar.
The transatlantic slave.
See, Tammi Mac should have jumped in. She let Cynthia. I don't know. I'm gonna have to take a look at Tammi Mac's background here, because some of that she should have. As the moderator, you can't just let her. You went to Umar specifically. He starts to answer. She gets triggered, and then she cuts him off. But you have to stop her. You're the moderator.
Trade was a European enterprise. It was not an African enterprise. Although there were some chiefs who participated in it, by no means did they control the direction and extension of the transatlantic slave trade. So that's number one. Number two, Black men resisted enslavement, not only on the shores of Africa, but right here in America. We celebrate Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser. There's literally hundreds of documented attempts by African men to liberate not only themselves, but their women and their children. So to act like we just sat there and we're complicit in our own oppression is absolutely ridiculous. The other point I want to
See, Doc is she's not here for the intellectual. She's not here to. She's here to spew lies, and she spewed lies, and then gonna talk about interracial babies to someone who's adamant and known. There's so many memes of Dr. Umar when it when there's it, it, I mean, it's a running joke at this point on social media that if there's a black man looking at a white woman, somebody's going to come up with a meme, a picture of Dr. Umar, because everybody is he's synonymous with being against interracial relationships, especially for black, in terms of black people, uh, specifically black men with black men with white women. They don't use the meme so much when it's a black woman and a white man, but he's against that too. But I mean, specifically, he's extra hard on black men about not being with white women, and she knows this. But the lies were flowing. She was feeling it, so she just kept going. She couldn't even help it.
clarify for your information, Cynthia G. You've never, ever heard me condemn the civil rights
Never.
movement. The good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther
Integration.
King Jr. is a hero of mine.
Yes, he is.
And
He's
despite me being a Pan-African nationalist, I take issue with other Black nationalists who do want to dismiss Dr. King's accomplishment. The civil rights movement was necessary because it removed a psychological scar that suggested of racial inferiority. So you've never heard me deride the civil rights movement. I support it, although I took certain issues with it. The bottom
taking certain issues with it doesn't mean he's against it. These two idiots are gonna twist up his words, and he's absolutely right. He I've never heard him, like I said again, he had certain issues with the integration portion that I've heard him speak on. Never the civil rights movement. Obviously, we had to end it. Jim Crow, those Jim Crow laws had to be ended. I mean, people was like, "Oh, I was better off in Jim Crow." No, you weren't. You could say the integration portion did hurt us, but man, getting just being able to um and I'm not saying being able to go and drink from a water fountain. No, I'm not talking about that silliness. I'm talking about the okay, it was open lynching season, meaning any old white person had authority over a black person. That's what I'm talking about. That needed to be ended. And that's what to me, that's what he's talking about. When you can't walk down the street and or the sidewalk and you have to cross the sidewalk when a regular white person is walking the street, if not, they can chastise and reprimand you or possibly even kill you, and absolutely nothing happened. That had to be ended. So people take issue with him. It's like, oh, civil rights was the worst thing to happen to us. No, there were certain portions that needed to be ended. Yet, the certain things help us. The integration portion, meaning we integrated our money into white businesses, that hurt us. But those Jim Crow laws absolutely had to be ended.
line is when Black women, Black girls, Black boys listen to this conversation we're having today, they're going to be confused because they hear two brothers speaking of a greater context to the problems that affect Black men, and you hear two intelligent, beautiful Black women who want to keep scapegoating Black men while ignoring the historical and contemporary systemic challenges that are constantly placed in our way. I'm going to say this and be quiet, Sister Tammy. I got to give you this. There was a recent piece of research, Tammy, that came out. And the research said a Black man with a master's degree, they did a study. They had white males who had come out of prison apply for jobs. They had Black men with master's degrees, Sister Tammy, apply for the jobs. And guess what? The white males with prison history and no education were called back more than 75% of the time than Black men with no prison history and a master's degree.
I'm
How
aware
you
of
gonna
that.
ignore white
I am
supremacy?
aware of that of that survey.
Look at this dude up there in the corner. Cynthia knows she's out of her league when Doc is cooking like this. Man, come on. I hate his intellect is just wasted here.
I am. Hope, I saw you give Dr. Umar the side eye.
It's only because I can't, you have 1,001 clips on the internet, but I know for a fact that one of the things that I was offended about in doing research or just seeing you on the internet is that you have definitely talked about your disdain for some of the practices of Dr. Martin Luther King.
way.
So to sit here and gaslight us as if most
Gaslight
of us
us,
have not
That's
seen
not
Oh
true.
God, that's
Find the
not
clip.
true.
It
Find
is
the
true.
clip.
I'm like Umar. Find the clip, man. Find the clip, man. That's all you got to do.
Find the clip.
Yeah.
Well,
Find the
Dr.
clip.
Umar, you yourself
Find
said
the
you
clip.
had you yourself just seconds ago said
See,
you did find some
Yeah, I'm
things in the civil rights
some
movement
things.
problematic.
some things that were problematic. That don't mean he had a problem with Dr. Martin Luther King or the whole movement. Damn Tammi Mac. I'm gonna have to look up Tammi Mac's background because Tammi Mac is like a double agent over here.
But I supported the movement, and I
Yeah,
still
he's
support it.
clearing that up right
I
now.
visit Dr.
Everyone
King's
supported
every
it.
time I'm in Atlanta.
I
Nobody, I have never been
as a black
dismissive
man,
of the
as a
civil.
black person in
If we're
America.
going to have the conversation, let us be
Exactly.
honest. Let's not
I mean,
misrepresent.
Now this is where Doc gets triggered because I get it because he hates for people to lie on him. I mean the same thing happened on the Roland Martin show, and I get it. That triggers a person like him who chooses his words carefully and knows what he's talking about. I can get where it's gonna trigger it, but Doc got triggered here.
Present
You're the
positive
only one
opinions
not
and
being
ideas.
honest, Umar. You're not
Look
being
at Tammi
honest.
Mac, just letting it
If
go.
we have
Find the clip. We
find
don't
the
have to
clip.
argue about
The
it.
problem is
We don't
we
have to
don't have the
argue
time
about it.
and the
Find the
goal.
You
clip.
just
I
admitted to
challenge
it. We
you.
don't need
He
to
didn't
find
admit to
60
anything.
seconds left on this.
Find the
60
clip.
seconds left on this segment. We won't be
Find
able to
the
find
clip.
the
We don't
clip
have to
on
argue
this
about it.
show.
Find the clip.
But Hope, finish. Hope.
Essentially, whether we find the clip or not, we know that those things have been said, and you know that you've
No.
said controversial things. Once again, we see
You
you
said
moving the
controversial
goalposts
thing.
when you find.
You see how this dude talks about gaslighting. You've said controversial things. Oh yeah, about you guys, about LGBT and trans and all that. That's what Hope is talking about and trying to pin it on. So the Hope's true motivation came out in that second there. You've said controversial things. Didn't want to say exactly what those were, but we know because Hope is trans here. That's what Hope is talking about. Those controversial things. So, let me just lie on him and say, oh, he said things about Dr. Martin Luther King, which he hasn't.
Controversial according to who?
We
Exactly.
find, once again, because my thing is you and Cynthia can have that dynamic, but I give you the space to speak. I've given everybody that space to speak, so please don't interrupt me. At the end of the day, I
You
think
interrupted me as well. Let's be fair.
I did not.
Yes, you did.
And so once again, here we go in a space where Black women are making a point.
You're not a black woman, damn it.
It's more important to the
It's
Black
not about you being a woman. It was about
Exactly.
you being incorrect.
You ain't a woman.
When
She ain't a
black
woman.
women
He
are
ain't a
not
woman. Whatever.
I
incorrect.
respect
It's
you.
more
You were
important for
incorrect.
Black men to
You were
speak over
incorrect.
and
I
yell.
didn't have an issue with a
And
woman.
I can't. This dude has been called. This Dr. Umar's been calling you queen and sister and all this, and you're gonna say he doesn't respect you being a woman, which you're not. I mean, but he at this point he doesn't know that you're not. Dr. Umar has been nothing but respectful, even though I'm like I wouldn't have been. I'm not calling Cynthia G and you a sister and beautiful black queen, and he's been nothing but respectful of you being a quote unquote woman. So what you did is gaslight him at that point to sit up here and say, "Oh, and when a black woman is talking and you don't respect her as a black woman," it had nothing to do with being a woman. You lied on the man.
You were
Omitting facts.
incorrect.
Well, let's all breathe in, breathe out, and I'll take a
It's not about
commercial
her being
break.
a
All
woman.
right,
She said something that was
we'll take a
untrue.
commercial break and
Exactly.
come right
Incorrect.
back to wrap this up on the business of being
Look at
black.
look
They
at
hate
Cynthia.
black
Cynthia.
men. That's the problem. They
Period.
hate.
Welcome back to
Yeah.
Business of Being Black with Tammi Mac. I am Tammi
Cynthia
Mac, and
G
the
was
business of
happy
being
on
black
that part.
today is
Knock
there a
got triggered
war
too.
being
Cynthia was happy.
waged against black men? Dr. Umar is getting it a little bit because he says the ladies are lying on him. And I
did.
suggest that you run through and roll through every interview and clip that Dr. Umar has to find the clip, as he would say. One thing I agree with you on, Dr. Umar, is a lot of times when we have these conversations, we start comparing black women to black men, and we tear one down in order to make the other's point. And oftentimes when I have these debates on the business of being black, I notice that is often the debate, to break the other person down rather than build them up. But I do want to do some comparative questioning right here. Do black men face more obstacles
course.
than black women?
Of
Dwann.
course.
I don't
Not
want to
even
put it
close.
in a more or less. We face different obstacles.
No,
but at the end
it
of the
is
day,
more.
this is
It's
what we
different,
can
but
say
it
is
is
true.
more.
Black women have a safety net that black men don't have. If a black man loses his job, like earlier, what they're talking about earlier, black men have no accountability. What if a black man don't pay child support? He gets his license taken away, he gets his passport taken away, and he can't get a job. So there's accountability there. When it comes down to when a black man messes up, he's going to go to prison far longer than anyone of any other race or any other sex. So
Absolutely. And I wish Dwan B would have said, when a brother doesn't pay his child support, he'll get his license taken away, or can go get put in jail or whatever. And was like, ain't that right, Cynthia G? I, I totally would have took another shot. I'm
we have
sorry.
the most extreme consequences, but when it comes to a safety net for when we mess up, when we're down in our life, there are no programs for black men. You can't go through the government and say, hey, if the black men with children, here are these list of programs that only men can get. But it's a whole lot of stuff out there for women. So what's happening, what I'm seeing right here is a lot of lies being told, but lies of omission. Omitting these safety, the fact that women have these safety nets that black men don't have, and also admitting the fact that in spite of all this, 3 out of 4 black men still get married to black women, and we still provide and we still do these things. So,
But
yes,
Dwann, what Cynthia would say is, how come you haven't created your own programs?
well, I personally created my own program. I've written 2 books. You know what I mean?
But that's not a program.
No, I know. I also have a whole program on how to communicate to your children and how to communicate to families, because my thing is about solutions.
But you're talking about safety nets. So the question becomes, how come black men haven't created safety nets?
Black men, the Nation of Islam created what they can create as far as safety nets goes. Black independent organizations create safety nets for each other all the time. I'm talking about governmental safety nets. We can't go to the United States and say, hey, we need something only for black men, because it doesn't exist.
And that's where he should have brought it back to. That's why it is systemic. This is why. And then I would have brought it all the way back to the original question of, um, when she asked, do we face greater challenges? Yes, and this is why. All he had to do was bring it all the way back, tie it and close that loop. Yeah, the government will provide programs. They will create programs for black women. Black women didn't create the programs themselves. This is how I would have answered this portion of this question. Black women didn't create those programs themselves. The government did. Black men don't have programs like that. The government didn't create them. Okay, so yeah, it's taken us a while to create our own programs. But when you've been economically disenfranchised and so forth and so on, we don't have mass programs like black women have. We have brothers here or there making programs, and I know people don't like that one brother, but I mean, there's a lot of brothers doing schools. There's a lot of Pan Africanists doing this. There's a lot of there's even conservative brothers, Republican, black Republican brothers building schools and programs for black men and boys and so forth. So there's programs around, but there's no one consolidated place to go to get to those programs. They're in pockets, whether it's in Chicago, New York, or Philly, or Atlanta, or LA. I think that there's one brother that was on Dr. Boyce Watkins' show. I can't think of his name right now. Some years back, he was on Dr. Boyce's program. He was a Republican brother. He was down South Georgia somewhere. I almost called his name, but anyway, so there's programs, but they're individualized programs. So I would have stated it that way. Yeah, brothers have individualized programs to where, like Dr. Umar. Dr. Umar has an individualized program. It isn't something that's funded on a mass scale. Black women have government backing to their programs. That's the difference.
There's a whole welfare program coming out in Atlanta that's only for black women. Same thing
That's
in
a good point.
California. There's a whole universal basic income that only black women can qualify for. Black men
men
can't
don't.
get it.
But do you believe that that's because black women
No, no.
came
No,
together and said we need a
Yeah, Tammi
program?
Mac's a double
No,
agent. No,
the reason why that happens is because the white supremacist plays on the
Exactly.
schism within black society, and they give one side greater gifts than the other, and that can lead to infighting. And then people who don't analyze what's really going on, they're going to just see the result and not see the cause and
Exactly.
say what's wrong with black people. That's the government's tricks going on like it's always done. Let's elevate one group over the other and watch these two rascals fight each other. That's what's going on.
Okay, I'm not sure that anything
point.
governmental is a gift, though. But hope.
yeah. Come on.
I think that when we talk about it, a lot of those programs, especially the ones from back in the day, since we are going to do the history thing, were not just made for black women, but black women accessed them because black women were the ones that were in the household that
Okay, I
happened.
can't. I can't.
A lot of those
You weren't in
spaces.
no
But
household. You ain't having
being
no
the
children.
trash man
Stop.
and having to hide him in the closet when the people came. So I do believe that it definitely was a setup for a letdown in the black community. Dr. Umar?
And real
Yes,
quick,
indeed. One of the problems with the conversation, not with you, Tammy, but the responses, they're
Tammy is a
so
double.
individualized.
Tammy is a double agent. I'm sorry. As I'm going through this, Tammy's a bit of a double agent here.
Nothing is being evaluated from a group perspective or a community perspective or a systems perspective or an institutional perspective. The bottom line is anything black men want to do to liberate ourselves or our community, we can't do it without our women. And anything our women want to do to liberate themselves or the community, they can't do it without the men. It is not a competition. It should be a collaboration. But once again, some of us in the conversation are so filled with hatred for the opposite gender that we can never get around to talking about solutions. And in speaking of clips, Sister Tammy, there is one clip you might want to ask Sister Cynthia about because it was sent to me by about 30 people several months ago, maybe even weeks, where she suggested that women, black women, should abort their black male fetuses because after birth, they would not contribute to anything worthwhile in the black community. Could you ask her to clarify her comments?
I would
on
love
black
to.
women?
Well,
Black
I would
women
love to too,
needing
but we don't
abort?
have time. So, Dr. Umar, what I need you to do is
Got it.
tell
That was
us
checkmate.
what you're working on so we can be a part of it.
That was checkmate because she didn't get to spew her bull crap on it and give some deflective ass answer or something. That was checkmate. So all she has to do is with that silly ass look on her face, smirk, is I took a L on that part. You know what I mean? And, as a matter of fact, I just saw something that just hit me and it reminded me. Tammi Mac brought Cynthia G back on the program again for another. I'm gonna look this up out there. Just, let me let them close. I just thought about that.
Yes, indeed. This Saturday will be the second annual Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey RBG Family Festival right here at 601 East 17th Street, Wilmington, Delaware. All free. Come out. We are looking forward to seeing everybody. Go to fdmgfestival.com to register for the free event. And please register for my new online video platform, www.fdmgfestival.com. drumar.tv. That's www.drumar.tv. And parents who need help with their children, special education, ADHD, psychiatric medication, IEP, autism, learning disability, reach out to me, 215-989-9858.
Dwann, please tell us about your book, Tell It Like It Is.
Tell it like it is, the art of loving communication. We can talk all day about bringing the black family together, but we're not going to have the black family together until the black family know how to talk to each other.
And where can we get the book? On Amazon?
We can get it at my website, breakthroughas.org.
Got it. Hope, please talk to me. Talk to me, sis.
So right now I have my book, Until I Met Black Men, available on Amazon or wherever books are sold. But also I want to bring attention back to Brittany Griner. She is still out there, and we have Black Feminist Future that you can follow on all platforms, including Instagram, that are helping to make sure that our sister gets home, because that's a huge thing right now that we're not talking about and that we're not discussing in the same way that we discuss when Black men are going through some of the same things.
Now, because
this dude, I swear, look at his thick chin. Oh, God, and let me not say it. Anyway, what are you talking about? What black men go through when it? I can't.
this show is about the war waged against black men. Until I Met Black Men. Is that a good thing?
It's a great thing. It talks a lot. What a lot of people thought the book was going to be was a read towards all the Black men that I've met in my life, but what it really
it is not. Right?
It is not.
All right. Cynthia G, tell me about the content of your YouTube channel.
Well, if anyone really wants to know about why selective breeding will be the best thing for our community, then they can come to my channel where I explain that, as I also talk about the dynamic between Black men and Black women, and Black women's need to have standards, expectations, and boundaries when dealing especially with Black men, but any man in general, and open up your options too. Put you first. Stop thinking about Black men.
Oh, I would have sold if I had the last word. Were you selective when you got when you got pregnant by Robert Perkins?
Okay. And I'm gonna be thinking about my black man, Cynthia, because homie is all of that and then some. So I'm thinking right now. Matter of fact, this show is over because I'm about to go thank up.
Doc is so unamused. Doc is hilarious. Doc didn't want to be there.
I can't join you in that one.
Quiet as kept, so am I, but I still feel how I feel.
Doc is so unamused. Let me take this off here. Yeah, Doc is hilarious. Okay, so I got some things. I got my criticisms of Doc, but he did a good job on that live stream there. Let me see here. Okay. See, and I just saw this. As I was so this ain't Tammi Mac. This is somebody else. But they brought Cynthia G back, whoever this is. Who is this lady? I don't know who this is. Do we have names up here? Okay, hold on. Okay, there we go. Dominic Dupree. Oh, this is that lady with the talking about reparations. Okay, all right. But anyway, hold on. There's something else I wanted to share. But anyway, so yeah, Doc's intellect was wasted on the panel. They didn't, and I know I didn't play a lot of what the brother Dwann B was saying. He was saying some good stuff. And like I said, he got in the first good shot on Cynthia G, triggered her, and I would have stayed with that line of attack if personally. I mean, make it personal with Cynthia G, because she's a walking contradiction of everything that she's saying. I mean, you telling black women to keep their options open. I'm not going to be thinking about a black man, blah, 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 blah. And you got a baby by a dude with a bunch of baby mamas and a bunch of kids. It's hilarity. It's so just a walking contradiction. And, you know, but yeah, hopefully Doc learns from this. You can't just run around calling everybody queens and beautiful black this and beautiful this, and it's just not a good look. You know, Shout out to them though. Shout out to Dr. Umar Johnson, and shout out to Dwann B. But these people are disingenuous. They we just have to come to the realization that everybody's not on the same team, and once you realize that, you have to cut some people off, and it's you can't come back. Those types, the Cynthia G types, there's no black man no black men should touch Cynthia G at this point. I mean, no black man should be touching Hope Giselle. I mean, that is a black man, but whatever. But Cynthia G, no black man should even touch. She should be excommunicated. All the women that follow her, if they follow Cynthia G, kind of like how black women were doing men with Kevin Samuels. Oh, if you like Kevin Samuels, then that's a no, which is fine. We have more options than they do at this point. So okay, no problem. But black men are gonna have to get stricter. So hopefully I'll see you guys this Saturday. I have another live stream Saturday. I'm going to talk about the parent crisis, and much like much like the financial markets and the just the markets in general, the market always corrects itself. The market is correcting itself. We're seeing it real time, and over the next couple of live streams, I'm gonna talk about some of those things. But the market is correcting itself, and people don't like it. People are just going to be mad, but there's nothing that you can do about when the market corrects itself. Everything will come into equilibrium at some point, and it's just taking black men a while to understand it. And um, it is what it is. Now, those are my final thoughts. Peace, Rebel family.